Thank you.
You're welcome.
So you want to see a new draft that includes NFG language?
The NFG language, yes.
So why don't, well, finish the hearing, but what I would recommend, maybe continuing the hearing to next month, and then I'll get you guys an updated draft, because we also have the 24-month review period. And then I can add back in the Nicotine Free Generation languages, and I can I'll point out there's going to be a few sections that changes throughout the document, and then I can give you a red line, which is helpful. If you can print the red line, you can see what I changed from this draft.
Yep.
And then I'll give you a clean.
Absolutely.
And then you can do another hearing, and then you can close that hearing, and then you can vote to approve.
I would also add that, and I'm sure Becky will agree with me, that the environmental impact of this sort of regulation is not inconsequential. We, in our small little area of domain around the rail trail and the parks at both ends,
The gazebo, yes.
we pick up endless numbers of vapes, cigarette butts, packages, everything. And so starting to remove that stuff from the environment, because I'm sure it's spread everywhere around the town, is a wonderful thing.
Yeah. Mrs. Cohn.
Also, having a mentally ill child who got sick at age 17 living in this town, I learned a great deal about nicotine because of that the acetylcholine pathway in the brain is a very strong frontal and temporal pathway that is highly affected by nicotine.
Right.
And secondly, any person on a medication who has the enzyme, a certain enzyme, a CYP enzyme, can reduce the level of their neuroleptic in their body by smoked nicotine. And the CYP enzyme that decreases the drug that they have to take is from smoked nicotine.
Yep.
And so I thought it was a miracle when Robert stopped smoking, and that was because he was inpatient at the state hospital for 2 years, and it takes so long. And the nicotine settlement never looked into the fact that these people were given state cigarettes every half hour at the state hospital years ago when there was Thorazine.
Right.
So there's a huge scientific, medical, biomedical reason not only for our kids to be protected, but for those vulnerable people who may have to go on some of the drugs.
Okay. At this point then, any further comments? Oh, nope.
Mine's like really quick.
Me too.
Checks in the mail.
You want me to go first? Sure. Oh.
Go ahead, Andrea.
Just some things to think about, because we did this in Belchertown and Pelham.
Right.
Is obviously the date that you're going to start the Nicotine Free Generation, born on or after. You could set it for this year, January 1st, 2005, which would mean anybody that turned 21 starting this year in 2026 would not be able to purchase. And then thinking about how you want to fine. Do you want your fining structure to be the same as the state, where if they sold to somebody under 21, it'd be a $1,000 fine for the first offense, $2,000 for the second, $5,000 for the third, with any sort of suspensions? Or if you want to just kind of rope this into your local regulation, you could do the 1, 2, and 3 for the first, second,
My
third.
understanding is that some of the fines are mandatory by the state.
But you can set your local fining higher than 1, 2, and 3. So in Belchertown, they decided to make it similar to the same as the state fining for selling to a minor. Just something to think about.
Yeah,
Okay. Yep. Go ahead,
This
Matt.
is Mark Gottlieb again, and on that point, I think there is some, there have been some updates to the MAHB model reg, reflecting some recent decisions from the SJC that have an impact on, I think, the most desirable fine structure to avoid any legal complications, and I just recommend it as you are amending a new proposal to consult with
I
that.
think simplification is a big factor.
Yeah, and just in general, I really, it sounds like you're going to move forward with regulations, and they may include NFG, I hope they do. It's just such an important thing for a small town to issue a regulation, even though there's only 2 retailers here, because I think it encourages your neighbors to then adopt similar policies, and then there's strength in
It adds to the growing body.
building
Yes.
better health in the region. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm very happy to hear that. Thank you.
Okay.
so the way we have it in right now, essentially like a local policy violation is 1,000, but the state fines progress. So the question is, do you want to have the local fines progress like the state fines, or do you want to leave them?
I think I'd be inclined to match the state.
Yeah, I would.
Because it's
yeah, I would
not
progress
it's
them.
not a big language change.
Yeah.
You know,
Progress 'em.
I would be inclined
So,
to match the
I
state.
can
You know, for
do-
the sake of consistency, if nothing
Yeah,
else.
so let me put that as a note too, so that the fines are the local fines will be in line with the state fines. Yeah,
Great.
local state violation fines.
Do we vote to continue the hearing?
Yeah, I would move that we suspend the hearing until the next meeting at this point.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
We will
What's the time and date in place?
the
The next
time
day.
and for the next hearing, we have to have a discussion about the next meeting.
Yeah.
You have to adjourn, you have to,
Close the
Schedule it.
hearing.
we need to know exactly when the hearing is.
Okay.
It's up to you. You're the limiting factor.
Yeah, I'm going to be away the next Thursday.
March
So it would be
5th.
the second Thursday in March.
March 12th.
12th.
Do you want to do it at 6:45 this time?
Let's do it at 6:45.
Okay, March 12th, 6:45, at the Myron E. Richardson Building in
Yeah.
Hardwick.
In Gilbertville.
Okay.
All right.
Good. Thank you.
I'll vote.
Thanks for
Thank
coming.
you.
We're
All right, and
as health professionals,
we
we're
hope-
very supportive of.
if you can, you will join us again, just in case the attorneys from R.J. Reynolds do show.
Can I leave you with a?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think I've got 4 of them, little packets, and there's some materials in there.
Great.
And Andrew, you had some stuff you wanted to leave with us too?
Adam, do you want this back?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
And then, this, I don't know if you got this in time, but I just printed it out because she sent that in, she copied me on it, but it came in a little bit late. It was just
I think I
to support
did.
NFG.
That's fine.
And then this is just a little bit on
I wish
environmental
where
justice.
water-
It's the DPH mapping
What was the
tool.
percentage here?
32.1%. Yeah, right here. Right, thanks.
Okay, thanks, Andrea.
Great.
All right.
Okay. I think Scott's here.
We got item 3 on it there as far as the MGOs for the tobacco products. I think that's pretty straightforward. They have to, the retailers have to be notified about the MGOs.
Oh, then.
I think that is something we'll just notify the retailers by mail and just remind them of the policy. They have to have these
I see, okay.
marketing orders, so it's a federal law.
Yeah, you saw that,
March.
yeah.
March.
So- If our administrative clerk isn't doing anything, we'll give her something to do.
So I'll get you guys, so it's the 24-month review of the local fines and Wine and State fines, and then the nicotine free generation language. Okay, and
Perfect.
I'll actually just try to get it done this weekend.
Okay,
Okay.
super.
Thank you.
You guys can post it online, get it
Get it going.
queued up.
All right. Item number 4. Mike.
Are you Scott? I am. Yeah, come on up.
Here he is. And Mike is back.
Yes.
Let me try and
All right,
turn
Mike.
that around without disabling the computer again.
Yeah, have a seat right here. If you, I don't know, I'm sorry. So, let's see, tonight, we are presenting Scott Parker, who's a licensed site professional. And I just want to kind of recap a little bit of how we've arrived at this point of hiring a licensed site professional regarding the Hardwick landfill in the Muddy Brook Valley over on Patrill Hollow Road. But, you know, let me just bear with me for a moment. But in June of 2025, the Hardwick Board of Health received a written request from the Ware Board of Health to consider taking action to protect the Muddy Brook aquifer that lies in Hardwick as a Zone 3 source of Ware's municipal water source. That request was followed by a similar request in July 2025 by Hardwick residents of the Hardwick Pond area, the HPPA, echoing the concerns and requests of the Ware Board of Health. In September of 2025, the annual time bond Hardwick Landfill groundwater test well results report was issued, confirming multiple contaminated wells with various chemical substances known to be harmful to human health and safety. Not being professionals in the field of toxicology and environmental health, the Hardwick Board of Health in November of 25 voted to hire a consultant LSP for professional assistance in interpreting the data presented in the annual time bond reports that they submitted to the DEP. Most notably the 24 and 25 reports, 2024 and 2025. In need of assistance in interpretation as well as guidance on how to move forward with these reports, the Board of Health allocated funds for an initial consultation with Scott, which is being presented tonight. It's of the greatest intention of the Board of Health to represent the concerns of the residents of all of Hardwick, especially those surrounding and down gradient from the landfill and the town of Ware as well. Of utmost concern to the Board of Health is the health and safety of our communities. Other important concerns like property values and landfill liability issues, although important, are secondary of concern to the Board of Health. So I'll let Scott introduce himself, and it's going to be a didactic kind of discussion, we could talk about the landfill reports and.
So, my name is Scott Parker. I'm a licensed site professional and have been for a long time. And so, Rick and I have talked a little bit about the history of what's going on. You have a landfill that's closed, it's in post-closure monitoring, being conducted by the owner and specifically their consultant, Time Bond. There are 2 sets of regulations that oversee the things that are going on at landfills. The solid waste regulations, which are very specific to landfills, but there's also overlap with the waste site cleanup regulations, which requires oversight by an LSP. So that's kind of the background of what's going on, the things that sort of apply to the conditions that are present. And I know that the board had several questions that I have printed out here, or members, based on the most recent sampling event, which I have. I think the report was dated September of 2025. What does it mean, and what, if anything, should the board do? And from what I can see, there are numerous wells that exceed the drinking water standard for PFAS and 1,4-dioxane. And that was noted in the report. It was submitted to the DEP, and under solid waste, my understanding of those regulations is that the ball is now in the hands of the DEP. The consultant is not required to make recommendations. They don't sort of go out and do things proactively. They're not obligated to do that proactively. They need to have discussions with the solid waste regulators as to what the next steps are. And that's sort of where I think the board is sort of unclear as to what's going on. Is a lot of the state regulators moving forward on additional assessment? Do they need to, and so forth? And, my interpretation of this is that they have fairly significantly high concentrations of PFAS in a number of wells that exceed the drinking water standards. It sits on top of a priority high productive aquifer, of which by default is given drinking water standards as the groundwater standard that applies to that area under this waste site cleanup regulations. So, the performance standard generally for something like this would be that you have points of compliance in 3 dimensions, because there's deep and shallow portions of the aquifer that are impacted as well as laterally. And right now, I don't see that they have any downgradient points of compliance.
Any what?
No downgradient points of compliance with regard to PFAS.
Meaning measurements down
Right,
grading.
so they just, they know it's here,
Right.
but they don't know
They don't know where it
They
is.
don't know where the
how
plume
far
is.
it goes.
Yeah, they don't know good.
And, right now, I don't know that that's necessarily on the landfill owner being, unresponsive or not having guidance or, direction from the DEP to say, okay, we've seen what you did in September, or whatever the report was dated September, go drill more wells and get more samples. We don't know that.
Right.
And
Because PFAS has only been tested the last 2 years. right?
correct,
24 and
they
25.
just started
Just started.
implementing that at the landfills.
But plenty of other, dioxane, acetone, I mean, there's a lot of other contaminants that have been in the wells for a long time. So we have test data going back to 2009,
Yep.
which have been sitting on the Board of Health shelf for, we never looked at it, to be honest. As citizens, we dropped the ball.
Right.
But in any case, there have been contaminants going way back. And DEP has not acted to do any other further recommendations or test wells.
Yep.
And I think the feeling is that, let sleeping dogs lie, let's hope it goes away or whatever. But there has not been any activity, as far as I'm aware, by the DEP in monitoring or in assessing, I should say, how far this plume potentially could exist.
Right.
We do know that the aquifer is deeper than the Quabbin. I mean, it's 250 feet deep, exceeds the Quabbin by 100 feet. And it's a high yield aquifer. It's a flow of water southward to the town of Ware and to wells around Hardwick Pond. So there are drinking wells. They're not 500 feet. They're a little bit further, but we don't know how far it is, right? So, yeah, I mean, and we know that the PFAS is, at least the PFAS 6 are, they're forever chemicals, meaning they don't break down. They travel far, they travel wide, and they're carcinogenic. I mean, there's 1,500 different PFAS, but 6 of which are known carcinogens. Not counting arsenic and all the other stuff that's
Right.
So, in light of what happened in Charlton and Southbridge with the landfill in Southbridge and the plumes that crossed the town border into Charlton, Ware has raised their concerns, and rightfully so, that the landfill could be putting their water at risk. So we're just wondering, what do we do as a Board of Health and as a town of the town of Hardwick as far as holding DEP's feet to the fire or asking them for, official?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the first step would be to contact, and you and I have talked about this, but to contact whoever the project manager is at Solid Waste that's handling this, and I don't know who it is.
Dan Hall has been the person.
Is he the section chief, or is he just the
He's the
project?
section chief.
He's the section
Yeah.
chief.
Yeah.
And, ask him if they're holding, the permit that they have specifically tells them, and I have it here somewhere, that they need to meet these standards. It's in their permit from 2009. It doesn't specify PFAS, it just says you need to sample for these parameters, and PFAS got added later.
Right.
And you need to meet the applicable standards. And then my interpretation would be that the applicable standard for this area would be GW1, which is drinking water standards. The tie and bond report specifies that there are no known drinking water wells within 500 feet, which is also one of the things that would make it a GW1 area. But the mapping of it by USGS, you don't even need the bylaw, because the waste site cleanup regulations specify that any high yield aquifer mapped by USGS is a GW1 potential drinking water source area.
In 2009, or 7 or so, 2007, one of the statements by Ty and Bond was that while this is not really on a high and medium yield, it's right on the border of a high, medium, and low yield. And so, therefore, they're not under those.
They don't need to follow all those rules.
Exactly. So, and they presented, and we have some of the maps, the groundwater testing maps,
Yeah.
engineering maps that I'd love for you to look at. But in any case, that's why we have moved forward with the regulatory process.
Right.
Because our feeling is that the gravel bathtub, granite bathtub with, filled with gravel is whether you're polluting at low yield or medium yield or just even in the buffer zones.
Well, the
it's at risk.
only thing that I can see in terms of that argument would be that they're making that argument in order to say that GW1 standards don't apply, in which case they don't exceed a notification or an actionable threshold.
Okay.
But I would disagree based on the mapping.
Right.
And the fact that even though they maybe half of the landfill is outside of that doesn't matter, because the other half and the down gradient side is inside of it, and that would be the leading edge of the plume, which would then be entering into, it's going to get into the GW1, so you need to define those limits down, where you have wells and samples that are below the drinking water standard and in 3 dimensions, not just laterally.
And who's responsible for that? Is it the landfill
Well,
or is that?
It's the landfill would be responsible for doing it, but only after solid waste tells them to.
Gotcha. Okay. So really, we have to work with solid waste.
Right, and there is overlap with waste site cleanup,
Right.
where under certain circumstances, they would need to be operating under both sets of regulations, and the solid waste regulations default a lot of their requirements to the waste site cleanup. In other words, they say you need to meet the standards, and the standards are in waste site cleanup. You need to perform assessment and response actions. Solid waste regs say you need to perform assessment and response actions consistent with those that are defined in the waste site cleanup regs.
Okay.
So they follow this sort of parallel path, but instead of having LSP oversight, they have DEP direct oversight. Waste site cleanup, this would all be on the LSP. I would look at this and say, this is GW1 site, we need to do this, this, and this,
Yeah.
and then we would go do it, and the DEP wouldn't get involved at all.
Right. Are you talking about do it as in remediation or
Just
do you mean
any,
study?
whatever the
Yeah, okay.
assessment, you
Okay.
need to meet the performance standards. So
Okay.
first step would be define the problem in
The
3
delineation
dimensions.
of the-
And then know who your receptors are. Are we impacting any house wells? Are we migrating 4 miles downstream
Yeah.
into the Ware municipal well or wherever it's going? But
How
you
would
need-
you even remediate? I mean,
You would
Yeah.
need point of entry at this point.
yeah, right, because
Yeah,
it's so
there's-
broad.
Yeah,
that
it would
couldn't-
be, it would have to be done at the wherever the receptor was.
Right.
There's no-
There's just no way to.
No,
Not
and-
feasibly.
We have some maps here that were done by, at BC that basically maps out where the, where the plume, where the
Yeah.
test well data is, and I'm looking at, this is just for the
We don't know.
PFAS, it's all
Right,
grading,
right.
like you said, right next to the
Okay.
wetlands. So,
Right.
what does the town do from here? I mean, what, like, do we, like, there's liability issues and whatnot, do we, do we go through town council, to?
I mean, I would
Because
say.
at this point, there's a 30-year period here that the time's
The clock
clock's
is
ticking.
running out.
Yeah, but the town takes over the landfill in a certain amount of time, and so we would like to get this resolved before that, or
Sure.
at least, begin the process and,
Yeah.
stop the clock if we can.
Um,
I don't know if
I mean,
anybody else has
My
any.
recommendation would be,
As residents?
initially, just to, either approach both departments, solid waste, and just say, look, we've made an observation that it looks like,
Yeah.
the standards aren't being met.
Okay.
Have you communicated anything back to them that they need to do something? It should be a matter of public record, it's just,
We haven't, because we were waiting for, that's why,
Right.
like, and maybe you can help us craft the letter.
sure,
Because we, as I said, we're not professional, physician, dental, doctor. What, we need, we kind of, we're not professionals in this
right.
field.
And I get, any response from the regulators would be a matter of public record. The files are, you could do a
Okay.
file review request and go into this, the waste site cleanup, all of that is online. I can go in and look at every single thing that's been submitted. Solid waste is still, I don't know if they make you email or hard copy, but it's not online, so you would have to go to Springfield, go into their files and look and see what documents have been submitted, their response, if there's even a response from the state back to the landfill owner, subsequent to them reviewing this September report. At this point, we don't know.
Subsequent, so since September.
Right, is there
Right.
any documentation?
Yeah.
So, Neil Halen,
Yeah.
Hardwick, for the record.
Who's on the Physicians Advisory Panel to the Board of Health.
So I mean, I support, obviously support all of this, but I have concerns about the lack of knowledge that we have about where the plume is. There's a couple things at play here that particularly concern me. The landfill is surrounded on at least two sides by wetlands. And in fact, parts of the landfill fall within the 100-foot buffer zone. So I'm concerned that there's got to be undersampling here and that we have wetland risks here. So not only do we have drinking water and aquifer issues, we have surface water and environmental risks from this.
Look at the study, yeah, because they do document surface
right.
water contamination.
Yes, I know.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
but we are suffering sorely from a lack of data. We don't have enough sample points. The second thing is that there's comments about sampling difficulty at some of the wells, and that the wells have been dry upon occasion. That we're looking at groundwater level really is dependent on what your sampling is going to be like. And one of my concerns is that with the change in climate and the increase in more violent storms, we will have greater events of increased water events at a given time. Instead of a small amount of rain over a larger period of time, which the ground can cope with, we're going to have larger runoff events. So that we are at greater risk from the unlined portion and any damage, perforations to the lined portion, because we're going to have a larger water flux in defined events. And so I'm really strongly speaking towards the board pushing the state for increased monitoring in 3 dimensions, as you say, because we're going to have more water and periodic higher water tables than we might have in the past, And if you're not sampling the wells at the correct time, we're underreported. We potentially could be undersampling.
Here, here.
So, Mr. Cole?
But Jeff had a
Oh,
comment
sorry.
first.
Okay.
Well, you can go first.
Thank you. Anthony Cole.
We're a friendly bunch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm Bill Cole. I had this question. So this testing began, well, the closure was say in 2009 and the contract for the closure. I think it said that an LSP was required during the closure and oversight?
No.
No, only
No,
in
but-
cleanup.
Only if something kicks it into
Okay.
waste site cleanup purview.
So we didn't have this kind of consulting, and while we had tests, we didn't really look at them as you'd indicated. And the PFAS wasn't even something that was tested until the last couple of years.
Right.
I think you'd indicated that there was evidence of down gradient contamination. And we're downgrading wells, and so my
Right.
question too is, and I know the landfill folks would be saying, it's not our problem, maybe it comes from up above maybe. So has there been any testing for above the landfill, where there is, I think, another
I'd have
old
to, I mean,
landfill?
I'd have to look and see, but typically that would be part of the, they must.
Well, they did it
They did
around the
it.
They have
landfill.
perimeter-
There's upgrading.
They have, they would include
Yeah.
upgradient, background samples as well, so they
There's a
could
before,
determine that.
well, there's a before test place and an after.
Yeah,
I
so,
think,
so there's surface water testing upstream, downstream, and right at the landfill.
right.
That shows surface water contamination. The upgrading and test wells are contaminated as well. So, but they're just around the perimeter of the landfill, they're not like, up towards Randy Nobles or, they're like further up valley. And that's, that data does not exist. I think the landfill, Casella's been doing, or Hardwick landfill has been doing what they're supposed to do and just monitoring the wells around the landfill, but not outside. On it.
And yet in
Meeting
terms of
requirements.
assigning any blame or
Yeah.
demanding any, cleanup or such, it's gonna come down to where is the problem and who can be proven to be responsible. So I think historically, or even from now forward, in comparison to these ongoing tests, something from upstream, if you will, is gonna be useful. And the contract itself, we don't seem to know, we asked this before, but we talk about 30 years.
Yeah.
I think the town's gonna need to know what happens in 30 years and and you asked this a minute ago, what are the considerations in terms of bringing this to light and trying in some sense to prosecute a solution?
I think we have a model for what happens. It's called the Lower Road landfill.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it is.
And the town has been engaged in monitoring activities there for many
That
years
costs
now.
about $40,000 to $50,000 of town tax money every year.
Yeah. It's
No,
down to about
no.
20,000, but yeah.
It was
18,000.
15 last year, and it's going up because of PFAS testing now by $6,000. But there is also the costs of
Monitoring well.
the monitoring wells. We have one failed monitoring well there that we're putting before the capital planning committee to replace.
You must mow it and
But
fence it and.
Well, it's not mowed or fenced. It's used as a retail property by the Hardwick Co-op.
But again,
So
we're
it
on
is-
the, we would be on the.
We're on the hook
back.
for monitoring and all that, but the co-op sits
will be.
on the
We
landfill.
will be on the, and talk, look
Yeah,
at Charlton and
yeah.
Southbridge,
We had to
turns
replace
into-
some of the wells because they got paved over by the co-op for the parking area.
I recently drove by this landfill.
Hmm?
I recently drove
You
by
rose
this.
it, yeah,
this
man.
one.
How'd
In the
you like
fall,
that?
and I was like,
I think it behooves the town to
Interesting.
Yeah.
engage town
Yeah.
council. I mean, I think we need legal advice and legal guidance in this situation. I mean, would you agree, Scott?
I mean, it can't hurt. I mean, if it's particularly, even absent the pending, liability that the town will have in
Yeah.
25 years or whatever the time.
No,
frame is.
it's about 8 years. It's
The 30
The
years.
horizon is closer.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
close.
the 30 years
Yeah.
started a long time ago.
Yeah,
Yeah, so, you know, that liability may not be insignificant, and certainly, you know, in forcing at least the full delineation of the problem, so that,
Right.
but right now, the liability is a complete unknown.
right, because we don't know the extent, we don't have a
Right.
delineation of the problem, and we
Right.
need to force them to delineate the problem.
Right.
And,
And, you know, like, I would start with both solid waste and waste
Yeah.
site cleanup. Most, you know, if there are no directly impacted receptors,
yeah,
which at this point, there aren't any that we know of,
right,
waste site cleanup will, you know, the overlap doesn't take over.
okay,
Once you start to get house wells involved, if there are, and, you know, you said there's none within 500 feet, but is it 600 feet? Is it
Yeah.
800?
Right.
I don't know.
I mean, if I was around the Hardwick Pond, I would be nervous.
And, you know, that might be something that certainly homeowners can sample these on their own. There's nothing to prevent
Right,
a
it's
downgrade.
possibly, but
It
yeah.
is-
right,
It's
yeah,
not
you
an
know.
inexpensive analysis, that's, you know, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But it, you know, it is something that,
We actually have a limited amount of funding made available by a citizen to test some of the private wells. So we just have to decide which is appropriate.
Yeah.
right, you know, and sometimes the state has, I know they've gone in and done some testing in different areas of the state. I'm not sure about Western Mass, but I know they did it in the Central Region, they did it in the Northeast. And, you know, just initially, just to see what's out there, because this is such a prevalent contaminant, that, you know, we were just trying to get a background, and one of them in Tingsboro, I think you and I talked about that one, that turned out to be, you know, a huge problem, because lo and behold, there had been one of the wells in the development exploded while they were drilling it. They hit a pocket of natural gas, caught the rig on fire, and the Tingsboro Fire Department came out and put the fire out with PFAS foam, which went straight down the well. And that was 20 years ago. And fast forward 15, 20 years, and state says, can we sample your well? Sure, and it came back like, you know, 1,500
Off
parts.
the chart.
Huge numbers, right. And then they couldn't figure out where it was coming from until they found this article in the Well Drillers Journal talking about this rig that caught fire because they hit a pocket of natural gas.
But
in
it's
the
not
bedrock.
just PFAS, right? There's a lot of
It's all
other
this stuff.
indicative contaminants in the groundwater.
Sure.
So PFAS, you know, it's claimed to be everywhere, and, you know, it's in all of our septic systems. But there's also
all the
dioxane, there's acetone,
Yeah.
toluene,
Right.
cyclobutane. There's all kinds of, and lead,
And-
you know, and heavy metals. So I'm just trying to, how do we move forward with the assessment? Still trying to make a diagnosis here, to put it in doctor terms.
Right,
You know, we don't have the data, we don't have the data points.
right.
And we need we need legal counsel, and we need, you know, DEP to get on board, you know, to force
Right,
DEP
I mean,
to
that's
do it.
that's the key in terms of, you know, sort of making sure that it's not, there doesn't need to be new regulations. The regulations are there. This is the performance standard. And so it's really just making sure that the landfill owner is not gonna do anything they don't have to do. And if the regulators are not telling them, this is what you need to do, they're not gonna do it.
Right. But if it's a fox in the hen house kind of thing, you know, if the fox is watching guarding the hen house, you know, it's DEP, I mean, I'm sure they have bigger fish to fry, you know, they have other big brownfield clean, you know,
Yeah,
I'm
maybe,
sure, but I'm sure they probably think, you know, let's let this sleeping dog lie, right, and just to let it be.
Yeah, I mean, that could be, and in that case, then you're right, you might
Small
need
town,
legal
low
counsel to
priority.
force their hand,
Right.
you know, to make them enforce the regulations they're supposed to be enforcing.
Right.
And that's where I said, that's where maybe the overlap with waste site cleanup, if
Okay.
solid waste is not doing it, you know, an appeal to waste site cleanup to say, look, this is what we have.
Okay, so we can appeal, so the steps would be, we reach out to DEP, And if that doesn't work out, we can appeal it to waste
Just
site.
wayside cleanup as well, and you say, look, this is our situation, is there anywhere that this would fall under the wayside cleanup's jurisdiction? Or can you at least work with solid waste, or, you know, maybe go to
Yeah, knock on the
the
door.
chief of, the whole western region, I'm not
Right,
sure who
right.
that is off the top of my head, but, you go above the section chief and say, this is a problem, but that would probably be a town council move,
Right,
not my move.
Mike, do you have anything to add to this? I know you're listening in on this.
Yeah, I'm listening in, Tim. I definitely think that you need to talk to David Jenkins, your municipal attorney, for sure.
So, can everybody hear? No,
That's as loud as it goes.
that's as loud as it goes.
I'm sorry. I'll try to speak up a little bit. You definitely need to speak to your municipal attorney about those issues, but I think I can help to run a little interference with DEP for you.
Okay.
Because we work with them, every 2 weeks we meet with DEP. The Coalition for Local Public Health meets with them. And I believe that the next meeting, which is, I think it's next Monday, I believe we have the commissioner coming to talk to us.
The commissioner of
That'd be a great time for me.
statewide DEP?
The DEP commissioner. The
Yeah,
DEP
okay.
commissioner,
Yeah, okay, not the
Money
Western.
Heupel, I believe, is coming next, I think it's next Monday. And I will certainly raise this with her, and what she will do is detail somebody to call me. That's the way it usually works. Once I put it on their radar, I get a phone call from somebody usually.
Okay.
And then we can try to put the pieces together and come up with some kind of a strategy. But I definitely I'm taking intense notes here.
Okay.
And I think that's the part I can help you with
Yeah.
right now.
So the town, getting town council involved from KP Law to review the contracts and whatnot from 2000, the closure, post-closure contracts?
I think what you got to do is just let them know that this is all happening to start with, because the worst thing in the world you can do is come to them once you're in a position where things are moving way faster than what you thought they might, because that could happen. It's very difficult to call the lawyer at that point and say, we've been working on something for 6 or 8 months, and by the way, we need something from you by Tuesday.
Right,
It puts them in a very bad situation, and it's an extremely busy firm, and catching their attention, I think that they always appreciate knowing that something's on the radar.
So we would have to go to the select board and ask for.
That's correct.
They're here as
That's
citizens, they're not.
Right,
the
I know
select
that,
board.
yeah.
And we have two, anyway, we'd go to the select board, ask for access to the town council, or maybe the select board could act as a mediary, they, as residents, have an understanding of what's going on, and ask for their legal review.
Well,
of-
it sounds like what you're saying, Mike, is we basically just at this point have to put town council on notice.
I would put them on notice that this is happening, and that way you're not surprising them. But I think that I think Mr. Tinker, you're on the select board.
We have two members of the select board with us, Mike.
But they're here as residents. They're not here as the select board, because it's not a select board meeting.
Informational purpose.
Okay, so I think you should schedule a joint meeting with the select board, or at least get onto their agenda, and then you'd convene your own meeting so that you can all talk about it in front of, on the record.
Under open.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you should meet with them, get on their agenda for just even an agenda item to put this on their radar also, and at that time, that's when I would make the request for access to your town council.
Okay. And we could tell town council that Scott Parker has been involved as an LSP and makes these
Yes.
recommendations. It's not just
Yeah, and you can
us.
tell them you've been working with MAHB. They know us very well.
Okay.
Jeff?
Thank you.
I have a question, Jeff Shaw. I'm also a select board member. you get your assessment done. It sounds like there's contamination already there. What can be done? Is the genie out of the bottle, so to speak? The water's gonna be contaminated till these forever chemicals finally break down in the environment, or?
No, they don't break down.
More or less, that's the case. You know, particularly with the PFAS, those compounds are, you know, they're high affinity to be dissolved in water. So they become dissolved and then they like to stay there. And they migrate, you know, more or less with the groundwater, with little to no retardation. And so, yes, in that case, you know, this plume is continuing to move, you know, a high yield aquifer like this, maybe a foot per day, something like that. So
the primary focus should be in stopping.
well, the primary focus
Making
right
it
now
worse.
should be, it's very difficult, if not impossible, to stop. And that's why, so the waste site cleanup regulations are all geared towards risk-based assessment and risk-based response actions. So, you know, in this case, where you have this, you know, very high concentrations, a known source, this argument that maybe it's an upgradient source that's a pretty high bar to prove. I mean, maybe it is a commingled plume with some other upgradient source, but
There's nothing else upstream.
there's
It's all
you have a
wildlife.
lot of PFAS in the leachate.
Well, there were
Dinosaurs did something.
some kind of appliance dumps way upstream.
Way up, miles
Way
upstream.
But nevertheless, that isn't, in my opinion, that's not enough to
Right. No,
obviate them from their
for all intents and
responsibilities.
purposes, we're talking about the land.
Right, the landfill needs to do what the landfill should do, and right now, that is, get your arms around the problem and know who your receptors are. And really, that means, is anybody drinking this water? Because the surface water is a problem, but those numbers are much higher than the drinking water standards. It is not a inhalation hazard. It's not something like chlorinated solvents that migrate but then partition back out of the groundwater and then come up into your breathing air, for example, like radon does. That, you know, that's a problem for chlorinated solvents, not for PFAS. So, you know, even if you had a massive PFAS plume moving under this building, we would not be at risk in here breathing PFAS contaminated air. It just doesn't do that. It's just an ingestion problem. And so identifying where those receptors are, and then they, like I said, maybe you figure out based on groundwater flow direction where the closest house well is, and let's sample that one and see what we find. At that point, you have an idea if that well, and even if that well's clean, it's a very
Eventually, it may
difficult,
not be.
right, because you don't know, it might be a, you know, well, in this case, they're probably, you know, in the same aquifer, but, you know, depends on where the well is screened, where the groundwater flow regime is going. You know, there's vertical components of flow where, you know, if you're only pulling water out of the top 30 feet of the water table, and that plume dives and comes out up here, it went right under you and you didn't, but then this guy gets it as it comes back up, because all groundwater ultimately discharges to the surface water. So it's going to be headed either to Muddy Brook or, you know, depending on where in the regime, it may dive and then come up, you know, several miles down
So,
gradient.
At the Barn Street wells, for town aware.
Treatment at the
At the-
drinking water well
Correct,
would
right.
be
That's
where we'd be looking.
And that is the response that would be
Okay.
done. You know, I'm involved with the town of Westminster, and, you know, they have a massive PFAS problem. No town water.
They're drinking bottled water.
200 point of entry treatment systems online right now. Sampling in the neighborhood of 300 or more houses.
That's because they had a company that makes the human waste fertilizer.
That was part of it, yes. It was that was a permitted composting and recycling facility that was bringing in paper pulp, among other things.
We don't want that kind of headache for
Right,
Hardwick,
but
but,
it's-
this is what we're trying to get an assessment of at this point in time.
I know, but
You know,
we've
that-
been doing this since I was on the board of
Well,
health.
but
And
we're
we
getting
need to
to,
test the first going into the Muddy Brook. I want to know what those levels of PFAS were. And
you're right here, I
compared
can
to
give it to you, the
Compared
studies.
to the ones coming out, we need to test the outflow of
The,
Hardwick Pond going into the Ware area, and
we'll let the professionals figure out where the testing goes.
we
The
have to
point is, we
do
gotta
it.
force them to do the testing.
Right, there needs to be motivation.
Right. So we need to determine, we need to force them to do the testing in order to move this along for the town, for the taxpayer, and most importantly, for the people that live just downstream. I mean, it's just not fair to those people who, it's their homes, it's their health, and
They don't know what they're dealing with
Exactly.
at this point.
Right.
Who are we trying to manipulate to take these tests, and why aren't we the ones taking? the tests?
DEP, yeah, waste, solid waste or waste site. Yes, Bill?
Following up on Jeff's question about possible remediation. So only at the spots where somebody would be drinking this water is it treatable in a sense. And those treatments, from other towns have included just giving them regular supplies of bottled water forever.
Or municipal water lines, which is what they did in Charlton.
So a new
Casella
water,
paid for
a
it,
new
they
full
wouldn't
water
admit that it
system.
was their responsibility, but they paid for it. They
Right.
put in water lines to the
Yeah.
residents in
Right.
Charlton.
Westminster is bringing in water from the city of Fitchburg.
Right, and,
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
That
property
in and
value
of itself would
problems,
be-
et cetera, on and on, so the whole, theoretically, the whole area could, going down into Ware, could all need remediation at some dramatic expense
Right.
from the whole thing, so, right, and
But
this
we-
is what
but-
could be unveiled.
We can't ignore it though and hope it goes away. It's just-
I'm not
it's fair.
suggesting that.
I know, I'm just
And, this is
making a
what we
point.
feared, 30 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And that's-
Yeah, I mean, it's there.
There are, there are containment methods that can be done to minimize what's leaving the source area. But the best approach first is to understand where your problem is and where it is and how big it is before you start trying
We don't know what
to
the plume is.
come up with
Right.
ways to, either contain it. Groundwater recovery and treatment on site is, it's not an inexpensive process to begin with. It's somewhat effective. Making sure that the cap is in good, has good integrity is obviously going to help a lot. Capturing leachate and making sure that doesn't go into the groundwater is, obviously a better way to go about it as well. So, there are mitigation things that can be done to, to cut down on it, but, for all intents and purposes, the horse is out of the barn for everything that's, 100 feet under the landfill at this point is gonna go on its course and just.
But one thing's, just want to make a comment that one thing's for sure is that landfill expansion and making it into a regional landfill for all of New England or, a central is
Zero.
not a good idea.
Disturbing this land at all
Right.
is not, so let me, if I could ask you a question. So we keep talking about sampling receptors, personal wells around the landfill. One of the problems is, as we look at these beautiful maps in the background here, that a large area that the plume could exist under already is underwater, and it could be deep, heading deep there still, right? We don't have people with wells there.
Right.
We're going to have a huge hole in our knowledge here. So how do we best advocate for a plan that allows us to understand what's going on in the whole area, as opposed to just a few houses that run down the west side and a few houses that run down the east side.
That's what the engineers do.
Right, the performance standard is still on the landfill owner to define the problem in 3 dimensions. All I'm saying is that for, the low-hanging fruit of the receptor is something that, either the town could advocate or assist these homeowners to sample them now, rather than wait until they go drill wells, and as they sort of expand and they drill, and now we still aren't there, and now we still aren't there, and now we got it. But these are still above the drinking water standard, so now you have to continually move that 500-foot line. So if they've gone 1,000 feet from the landfill to get their downgradient point of compliance, they have to continually reassess where the receptors are, because it's not 500 feet from the landfill, it's 500 feet from that last failing point. So if the most downgradient sample that fails is 1,000 feet downgradient, the receptor is another 500 feet from there. So now I'm sure you're getting into...
Well, 500 feet from these test wells is wet.
Right.
Right, but he's saying that if the plume is found to go 1,000 feet
Right,
down,
what I'm
that's
saying
another
is, to drill the 500-foot test well is wet.
Is water.
Is water.
Yeah.
You're in the marshes
Yeah.
at that point. So I'm
Well,
just,
It can be done right now.
It
Ground
can.
is frozen.
okay. Okay, I mean, so this is an
Yeah, I mean,
interesting.
it's
So
not
this is a
point.
technical issue that
Yeah,
the
it's a-
Ty and
it's
Bond
a-
engineers, I'm sure, can come up with a solution.
be done. Is
For the very-
Yeah, I mean, the technology exists.
It does.
To be able to get the sure.
Okay.
Yep.
So I had a question, when you're talking about the performance standards, you're talking about DEP?
The regulations.
performance
Yeah,
standards.
correct.
So they, Ty and Bond should be testing,
Well,
for
Time
the-
Bond is only going to do what the landfill owner
Right, okay,
pays
so-
them to do.
Right.
And the landfill owner is only going to do what the DEP tells them to. There's nothing under solid waste that requires them to be proactive. So that's
So
what
so they need a push.
Right.
So we need.
And waste site cleanup has the LSP program, which means that if you have a problem and you have an LSP, the LSP says, this is what we need to do, and then you have to do it, or you get a different LSP. Because
So this is
This
going to them
is-
and saying, this is what we need
this is
to
a
do.
DEP direct oversight situation, so they have submitted their report, they told them what they found, they sort of said they failed the performance standard of, delineation to the drinking water standard. The language is there. It's sort of muted, but it's there. And then now they're waiting for, the regulators to come back and say, hey, we noticed that you failed, you don't have downgrading control. We think you should put in some more wells. Okay, where should we put them? And then they have a dialogue, and where should we put them, where should we screen them, how many, and so forth.
Well, this is what we need to do. is
But we need to
push.
find out if that
We need to
could
push.
be happening, it's just that the board is not in the loop if those conversations are taking place.
Right.
Could you get us in the loop?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, we can,
Yeah,
that would be
okay.
the
Yeah,
call to waste site
Yeah.
clean, or to solid waste.
So do we have mass impact yet on actual residencies?
Not that I know of.
And the plume is traveling at a certain rate.
Right.
So if you establish monitoring perimeter, but then over time we eventually own it anyway, but there's not yet a direct impact, and when there is in like 25 more
Right.
years,
Yeah.
we're still.
There
And
could
now
have-
we've done a study that proved it was the
Well, that's why
landfill,
you-
which now turns over to Hardwick. So now we proved ourselves out that we're now liable because we've acquired the land.
Well, I don't think that
See where I'm going?
the performance standard of the, I don't know the language of the contract, but I would assume that the contract language would say something to the effect that the problem is a known entity, and right now it's not. I mean, you can't assume a liability if it's an unknown.
No, and I don't think this is all theoretical anyway right now, right?
Right,
We're all-
right.
We're
We
just,
have to make it known
We have to make it.
by testing
Right.
now.
Yeah.
You mentioned LSP, what is that stand for?
LSP is a licensed site professional.
Okay.
That's what.
He
Him.
is.
Scott's-
And that's
So everyone knows.
a certification that the state established, I think sometime in the late 90s,
Okay.
to make cleanup of contaminated properties be less directed by DEP and more sort of self-directed. And it's been pretty successful, actually. It's become a model for a lot of other states. And, you know,
The owner hires the
the owners hire the LSP.
The owner hires
You
the LSP.
identify the problem, and then there's a whole
Yep.
set of regulations that the LSP has to, you know, and then when I sign and stamp and I certify under the pains and penalties of perjury that everything here is true and I did everything I was supposed to.
And the owner is submitting the cleanup plan
Right.
to the DEP for approval, and you're hiring an LSP to essentially like make sure you are doing that
Right.
correctly.
And it has to be overseen and stamped by an LSP, sort of like a PE.
Bill,
You say, Matt, that we should use our
I'm
funds?
sorry, Ms. Combs. Bill,
Thank you. Two questions. One, you mentioned the landfill on Lower Road and that it has shown contaminants for some time. I wonder if you can compare that level of contamination to what's been detected at Muddy Brook. And the second question has to do with, I've seen elsewhere, sort of in the planning world, that some, I don't know whether they're mandated or just requested, but private well results being provided to the town, either from the water testing companies or realtors or people that have did it themselves. But those results have been made available through some mechanism to various boards in other towns. I'm not sure how you do that, but it sounds like it could be useful information. But what about the contaminants, the relative levels?
I couldn't speak for certain as far as that goes. My impression in reviewing the reports is that it's significantly lower level.
Oh, yeah.
Which is?
The lower road landfill is much
Because
lower.
that's a much older land, that
It's a
was a
much
much older
older-
landfill that was closed.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Before we invented all the really bad
Yeah,
stuff.
I was gonna say, yeah.
And some of those are gas wells, too.
Yes, they're gas monitoring wells.
Gas.
Yeah. And the gas monitoring wells are consistently below explosive standards and so
I
forth.
just want to, can I make two, what I've learned? Number one, the state of Connecticut sued the state of Massachusetts for contaminating the Connecticut River that flows into Connecticut. And at Bradley Airport, just above the border, or on the border, they, used a lot of PFAS. And, but the ability for it becoming a waterway issue, which I just learned tonight that after 9/11, Homeland Security is in charge of our drinking water. Whatever that means. And that's why they have new requirements about fencing and stuff around the
Anyway,
water
your point.
districts and so on. And the other point I've forgotten. Scared me.
Okay, no, I'm sorry, just in the interest of time, I know Scott.
Oh,
Yeah.
I sent you referrals from the former head of solid waste, Nancy Seidman. I don't know if that rings a bell. The only time I ever spoke to DEP as the Board of Health, they told me the fact that if the fight with Casella over the landfill goes to the very limits, and we have rejected their proposal as the Board of Health, then it goes to the Department of Environmental Protection in the state. It's at that point where the DEP is required to do what sounds to me like the big study.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what we're hoping. Hopefully Mike Hugo will be able to get us in touch with that, with the new secretary.
Could we just ask the DEP to do that?
I think so, yeah. I think we need to formally ask, investigate, maybe,
Yeah, I
Scott's saying it may already be in process.
Right, it's just
Well,
that we just
yeah.
don't know. We don't know what maybe or may not be going on behind the scenes between, the regulators at solid waste and Casella. They may well have sent them a letter and said, you need to keep drilling, but we don't know.
And if not, then we.
Right,
then we'll-
and if they're not pushing that,
Then we push.
then, we ask, why not? Why aren't you pushing them? Because it appears to us that they're failing to meet the standard.
Right.
And, certainly I can, call them tomorrow and ask that. I mean, it's, like I said, it's once they've made a correspondence, it's a matter of public record. It goes in the file, so, we can look at the file and see what's available and if there's any communication, and maybe they'll just tell us, over a phone call.
Right.
Yes, we're looking at it, or we got the report in September and we're gonna review it in April. We don't know.
Well, that's
And if they say it's-
unacceptable.
Right. If they say it's not a problem, then we have to.
Right, yeah, exactly. We have to figure out a different
Yeah.
avenue
Right.
to, leverage some action.
Right.
Yeah, I think there is, in Hardwick, you don't have the budget to
We don't.
really take this on.
No.
No.
You just don't. We just, Town of Orange denied a special permit for a battery installation on the Zone 2 of our largest public water supply in Orange. And we just paid, we dropped like 50 grand defending litigation. The battery installer filed for summary judgment, which was denied, and then it was going to go to trial court, and then they finally pulled it 50 grand later. So from the zoning board saying, nope, we don't want the potential for, post-fire contamination on our primary public water supply for the town. So this stuff just gets very expensive very quickly. That's just lawyer fees. I mean, you're talking like, my time up there,
Those
my
are
job,
threefold.
various department heads and testimony, like,
Speaking of which, just
Yeah.
send us an invoice for what you got so far. But, yes, I don't know, is there anything else for Scott that you can think of that?
Not that I can think of.
Okay.
I think we've covered a lot of ground.
Yes, thank you.
So
Scott,
would
thank
you
you so
like
much.
me to call?
Yes,
Solid Waste?
why don't at least we do that, and just, that's part of the initial.
I can do that tomorrow and let you know what they say.
Okay,
All right?
great,
Can you
thank
do me a
you.
favor and let me know after you speak to them where it all stands? After you're
Yes,
done saying
you're asking me or you're asking Scott?
asking Scott, so
Oh.
on Monday when I see DEP,
Oh, okay, yep.
I'll know what I'm talking
Yeah, I
about.
mean, it's Friday tomorrow, so, I'll call them in the morning and
Yeah, you
Maybe
might get
hear from
nothing.
them.
hopefully they'll call
Maybe
me back,
hear
'cause
from
they
them.
won't answer the phone, I know that.
But you know what, if they don't answer the phone, that gives me something to talk about.
Right, I'll leave them a message and tell them why I called and.
Do you know how to get in touch with Mike?
I'm not sure.
Or, yeah.
Yes, you do.
I
You
do.
do.
Okay. Okay, sounds good.
We'll get it.
All right.
Good, thank you.
Thank
you, Scott. Thank you very
Thank you
much.
for coming in.
Thanks.
All right.
All right.
I think that,
I'm just gonna keep this running. I'm gonna step away, but I'm gonna keep it
Okay.
running until it's.
We're gonna talk about regulations right now, Mike, just to, I'm gonna present the Board of Health with,
I am gonna stay.
yeah, if you can. So, on that note, we are, the Board of Health, has engaged in this discovery process over the past several months, and in December, we voted to proceed with writing regulations to protect the groundwater of the Muddy Brook Valley, the water resources of the Muddy Brook Valley. We already have a Zone 2 in the lower part of the Muddy Brook Valley here, but this aquifer runs up and down this valley, runs down the valley, I should say, to the town of Ware. These are very vulnerable resources, as we're finding out, and the Board of Health is empowered to develop and adopt regulations in the Mass General Law 111, Section 31, 122, 123 for water supply protection. So I went ahead and started drafting regulations for the Board of Health to consider. Paul's not here, but we'll get him a copy and get you a copy, Matt, to look at. But with the assistance of hydrologist Scott Horsley a very well-esteemed hydrologist.
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
Please, I know what you're talking about. With the hydrologist, we developed a model
Hey Siri somewhere.
of an area of protection with a buffer zone. The buffer zone is based on a formula with considering transmissivity of the soils. But in any case, we came up with a map of area to be regulated, and the regulations are basically to protect it from large-scale contamination. This isn't like for a homeowner to be concerned about. This is large-scale contamination, and so the regulations are short and sweet for the most part. We decided to keep it simple. We decided not to regulate agriculture because of their compliance with USDA farm plans and NRCS guidelines and plans. So at this point, we have a draft to be considered by the Board of Health. We will have to revise it as indicated, as we decide. We will then present it to the town council for review, and we will, in order to make it official, we will have a public hearing, properly post it and have a public hearing. This will happen over the next 2 months. We'll want to move things along relatively quickly. But again, this is we have maps here with affected landowners, of parcels, tax parcels, but most of it's within the valley. The regulations, as I say, are for large-scale contamination preventive measures. And the regulations address threats to the aquifer such as landfills, transfer stations, battery energy storage systems, BESS, petroleum depots, large expanding junkyards. Existing ones are exempt, but if you're thinking about putting in a junkyard,
Expansion is prohibited.
the expansion is prohibited. Hazardous waste storage. So these are large scale threats, not homeowner residential type threats. It allows for development, residential development and normal residential activities. So this is really about the large scale threats to the aquifer.
So if I'm doing a brake job on my car, I can still use brake clean.
Yes, right, exactly. And you still fertilize your lawn, and you can still do your power washing and stuff. It's just, this is the big stuff. So these regulations are, the draft, I should say, is available. It's we'll be making it publicly available for sure. It's still a working document. We're still in the process of modifying it, and what to hear from Paul and yourself.
Yep.
I'd be very interested in getting your modifications. So, are there any questions about putting forward? We finally, issued these regulations based on due diligence over the past 6 months, and we've had panel discussions. We've entertained a number of residents and farmers and whatnot to have input into this process. We've had grad students and academic individuals or institutions, I should say, be involved in development of the mapping. And I don't know if there's any other questions. Mike, do you have any thoughts or about the issuing of regulations here by the Board of Health to
No, I
protect
think it's,
water resources?
you know the procedure. You have to present it and give your comments and then vote on it with an open deliberation, but you're right on the money as far as I can see.
Okay. Anybody have any questions or? Yeah, he was quick to raise his hand.
Go.
He's faster than you, Judy, you gotta move faster.
Thank you. When you gave us this presentation at the planning board, and we appreciated that, some questions came up about land use within such a district. We know it's an option. It could be a separate zoning district created, but it doesn't have to be, as I understand. But all the properties within your designated aquifer area there would be subject to different regulation, and that would be, but it wouldn't have to be a zoning thing, I guess. So, did I understand that right?
Is that right, Mike? Would you, I mean, I would assume that's right. It's residentially zoned to R60, I think, that west part.
Yeah, R60.
And,
I didn't hear the question.
well, whether there's additional, that these are additional regulations in addition to the planning board's zoning regs.
Right. These are health regulations, and they're separate and apart from whatever zoning's doing.
Okay, so they're health regulations in addition.
As long as zoning stays in such a position that it doesn't affect the public health in a negative way, then they don't ever crisscross.
So don't rezone it industrial.
Well, would it be like in concert with the planning board to say, well, there's no hazardous waste, there's no battery parks in this area, that's in your health regulations.
Right.
So that would be in concert with the planning board. To say that's not allowed.
Right, it would have,
If you have site plan review.
it might not need a whole designation of a different district, but if somebody was applying for a property, for a use, and their property was in that, then we'd need to know about that. And by the way, this is something we're working on, I understand, not us, but the town, on having coordinated permitting and review from different committees, which is something we've all along recognized would make good sense.
So these are health regulations in addition to the other, so, yes.
Is there any comparison with Ware, the town of Ware, that is zoned the Mary Lane Hospital property as to be a health district?
I wouldn't say so.
There's no comparison?
I don't think so.
Because of its being a source of the basic elements of survival, the air, water, soil.
We are, so the laws were written, the regulations were written in conjunction and in consideration of Ware's bylaws that protect the Muddy Brook aquifer south of the, in the town of Ware. So Ware already has bylaws that protect the aquifer. And we just used ours were modeled on theirs in the DEP model regulations for ports and health. So we've considered and used the Ware bylaws, but not specifically the Mary Lane health
Yeah.
zone.
But I'm talking about imagining within the public health laws, chapter 111, 112,
Yeah.
which we operate under because we don't have local bylaws so far. Can you create in the zoning a health entity that protects and prevents illness through environmental contamination?
I mean, I think it's what the board, what these regulations are intended to do. Is to-
Yeah.
So if I could, so one of the things that has purposely been excluded is agriculture, and because there are other regulations.
Correct.
that
Yeah,
cover
they're
that.
subject to.
Commercial fertilizers are not exempt, but
Right.
there's.
So you bring up fertilizers, which is exactly what I was going to bring up. So there is one of the things just I wonder you spoke about impacting the homeowner, wouldn't necessarily impact the homeowner. There is a particular type of fertilizer sold through big box stores called Milorganite, which is post, shall we say, consumer waste. that is processed and sold as organic fertilizer, which has been noted to have PFAS in it.
Right.
It is banned in several states, and it is banned in certain municipalities. I wonder if part of this...
We would incorporate that into the regulation.
Yeah, because just that has been a known thing, and we know that farmland has been destroyed, and ranch land has been destroyed by the use of biosolids fertilizer, but there's no real regulation currently guiding the homeowner. In fact, since we know there is a problem in a particular product, we might consider mentioning it, something like that.
Exactly. I don't buy the produce from the local farmer because numerous reports that they have used this product and it's known and to be the forever chemical on that property.
Right.
Well, we'd certainly take it into consideration. I mean, it's something that we should
Yes,
flesh out.
absolutely.
Just have a point to say, well, Milorganite is actually came from Milwaukee. It's from the Milwaukee human sewage. That's the human sewage treatment.
I was trying to say that.
Clarify that.
Right.
I was
That's
trying
why
to
it's Milorganite. That's how they.
trying to be a little more
Again,
simple.
it is a right to farm community, so we have to be aware of that. But this is for.
But this is a public this is a public safety issue, but it's also I'm not talking about the farmers,
Yeah.
and they shouldn't be using biosolids either.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about the impact of people within the zone.
Well, I mean, to me, that would be something to extend town-wide.
Yes.
You know,
A big-
I
I would
might
ask
even be a
that.
separate, just a.
that's-
I would
Yeah.
love
Separate
to
issue.
see that,
Yeah.
but I'm just commenting, since we're discussing
Right.
this, and you mentioned that this would have low impact on the individual existing land.
Yeah, we've
homeowners.
tried to really tailor this to have the least impact on, and out of respect for property rights, to have the least impact to we don't want to micromanage. It's really about the big picture
Right.
threats.
But, what you say
But, yeah.
is something we can certainly consider
Yeah.
going forward as a separate regulatory.
Okay,
They're all
like petroleum depots. I mean, if someone wanted to put in, fuel storage.
Exxon Junior.
Yeah. These are things that if they leak, they'll.
But it also could be an educational thing that the Board of Health could to say, because I don't think people particularly know that it has PFAS. I mean, to say the Board of
Well,
Health.
I mean, that would be, I think,
An educational thing.
an opportunity at a public hearing to present that.
Right.
Well, that's what I'm saying, because
But,
I
no.
think people, a lot of consumers are not aware.
Right.
It's the responsibility of the boards of health to educate.
Yeah.
That's one of their, in fact, of all health providers, is to educate so that we can prevent. So I like that idea.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
All
all I
right,
have.
moving on. We're finally to discussion of the earth removal importation bylaw draft. I assume that's a primary reason for your,
Not
necessarily.
I'm interested in the water and all you're doing there. So
Excellent.
maybe you want to do all the contamination first? Next item on the agenda, right? If you want to,
Oh, the green burial?
No,
the
Lower Road when you had
Yeah,
next.
we did look over it. I don't know if Paul has seen it, but
Yeah.
Rick and I have looked through the regulation, and we don't see any specific public health impact input that we would want.
For the earth removal bylaw.
For the earth
Yeah,
removal
Jenna,
bylaw,
right.
that.
Jenna asked for our input. I know you guys already discussed it, right, and voted on it?
Right, I'll summarize it quick if you want.
Yeah.
We, in the course of reviewing and updating various bylaws, earth removal, which hasn't been revisited in many years, was being reviewed, and Jenna in particular wanted to see some updates to that. And so right now it's only in the form of a draft that we've shared with different people, including this board, to see if there's any feedback in advance of drafting an article and then having a hearing and then bringing it before the town for possible adoption. That's where we are. So if you had any input, fine. It doesn't seem like there's a
It seemed very
direct
reasonable
overlap.
to
Yeah,
me.
from a Board of Health standpoint.
Yeah.
Right.
Very prudent and.
She was just being thorough, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Judy?
In terms of earth removal, I remember looking at the regulations of the laws that if you move more than 10 yards of whatever, you have to get a permit from, is that true, Matt, from the Board of Health?
Say that again.
To move more than 10
Say you're gonna
yards.
shovel up more than 10 yards or some limiting number of yards of gravel or dirt or concrete
I'm
or
not aware of
dig.
that.
Planning.
Planning board. It's not under any, it's not a Board of Health thing.
Right, a permit's required, and if, as it reads now, probably will.
Right.
For removal of more than 100 cubic yards in a year. And that's, and that's if it's not agricultural, so that's not a Board of Health thing.
Okay.
Moving on, item 7, we have 3 proposals from various entities for the continued monitoring of the Lower Road landfill. You had recommended a few people to, we did get responses from all of them, from both of them,
Okay, good.
Mark and
Tim?
Tim. Tim's was significantly higher than Stantec, and Mark's came in 1,200 plus lower. My inclination, town's in a budget pinch. $1,200 is $1,200.
Yeah.
You've been
I ran the
happy
same,
with his work, and
yeah, I ran the same exercise in another town, and we hired Mark, who's been doing landfill monitoring for a very long
has a
time.
list, 2 pages long.
So, this is my first year with Mark in another town, and I'm happy. So, I think if you put out a statement of work and you got 3 prices, mass procurement law would lead you to hire the person with the best price, assuming it was a responsible vendor.
Right. Yeah. So my take on it is we should probably proceed.
Do we need a motion?
I think, sure.
What's the last name, Mark?
Popham.
Mark Popham.
Popham. Make motion to hire Mark Popham to do the Lower Road monitoring.
I will second that. Any further discussion?
No?
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, we will proceed with Mark for this coming year's landfill monitoring. Beginning
Lower Road.
July. Lower Road, yes. Next, health agent report.
I was just looking at my phone since the last meeting, and I haven't been in town since December 19, since the ground froze. But,
So not much to report other than
No.
regulatory development.
no, we had a few inspections before Christmas. D-box, Title V witness, a septic tank install over on 665 Lower Road. That one just got sold, and we did a perk on 2700 Greenwich, and then after that, I was just writing up the draft regs. And,
Yeah.
But I mean, I've been very busy otherwise. Town of Orange adopted a charter, so
Yeah,
it's been a busy.
busy. That'll take up a lot.
Yeah.
We had. Do you, when you're in contact with these people, do they go over the fees with you?
Who?
Any of the people requesting inspections and so forth, or it's just what comes through our office?
What goes through the office?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, because we've run into a problem, a minor problem with people making checks out to the Hardwick Board of Health.
Oh,
There you go, John Millett.
I would, that'd be great. It might supplement that massive Board of Health salary I collect.
Yeah.
So the point is, I just want to make sure we plug all holes and
Yeah,
make
yeah.
sure everybody says, make your check out to the
Town of
town of Hardwick.
yeah.
There, are you happy now?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll
Well,
jump
do
that
you
in.
have a form or something that they, when you're doing?
It
Oh,
says so on the form.
It says on
Okay,
the form.
all right.
It says
Well,
on
that's
the
what
form,
I'm-
and we still get it.
I know.
And then
I know.
Alyssa says, take it back.
Oh, people ask me, do I make that out to you or? No, I
Maybe we're
don't.
making-
No,
Do
don't
not.
do that.
You want cash? I'm like, no, I do
No.
not give me cash.
All right.
Get it away from me with the cash.
I think we're ready for the administrative clerk's report.
Yes. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
You can.
Not
Oh,
very
awesome.
well.
All right, so the general update that we
Move
have
closer.
is that, as you already know, it's been slow for Matt. I do have some applications for him to look at. I will get them to you, Matt. We
Wonderful.
had Stericycle pickup for our first pickup ever, January 14th. We've been preparing for tobacco and the aquifer. That update, I don't know if Dr. Mott, you'd like to help with that.
With FEP,
Yes.
we followed a recommendation from the police department to try and enhance communications by getting a compatible all-band radio for the Board of Health. Since they cost $10,000, FEP did not look favorably on the request, and in fact today rejected it. So we'll have to revisit that issue with police and fire in terms of how we want to handle emergency scenarios and the communication issues we encountered in the tabletop exercise. And that's really all I have to say about FEP. They are looking at some of our other requests. Shelving for the container up at the school has been acquired, and we'll have to make a trip to retrieve it from Worcester before long. However, they are struggling to find a dolly kit to cart that incredibly heavy generator around. And that's all I've got from FEP.
All right, so next on my list is the LRPHC, the Leicester Regional Public Health Coalition. I've been receiving applications for them, sending them over to the health agent. We have a couple of questions regarding the difference between food handler, food manager certificates. Matt will know the difference. We've
Yeah, they're
had
sending
one
us-
complaint
I pointed
come
that out.
in. It had to do
Yes, it
with
did.
water damage at the Quabbin Estates. And Michelle from the LRPHC did an inspection. And I do not have that report here, but I believe it's still an open case.
It's an
I
open
believe that's the
case.
only one.
They are, the owner has engaged a contractor to handle the mold issue. But
Okay.
we haven't had an update yet as to whether it has been corrected.
And so, that's all I have. That's all
Okay,
I have. It's been a quiet month, January.
good thing. Time for recovery.
All right,
All right?
all set.
Thanks, Trish.
Okay. There was, do we have on the, Tricia, you said we had on the public agenda unanticipated business?
Yes.
Okay.
Number 10.
Yeah, I don't see it on the printed
Oh.
agenda that I have in front of me. It skips 9 to 11, but that's
Oh,
fine.
I have it on mine,
Okay.
but I don't believe we have any
Yeah, I don't see that, you said somebody would be coming, but I don't see them anywhere in the room.
All right.
We're supposed to have a last minute visitors. But since we don't have any last minute visitors, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Yes,
what?
I can't vote. I was going to ask you, do you want, other the last minute issues, do you want a brief report from the?
Are you aware of this? I assumed you were, but I didn't.
Oh, absolutely.
We are going to go hold adjournment while we listen to Neil's report, because yes, I'm very interested in it.
Okay.
Okay.
So, Judy Korzak and I have been very busy, and we had a meeting of the minds on Monday in Ware, organized by the Friends of Mary Lane, which brought together representatives from all of the towns we can think of that might be concerned with rural health,
Healthcare desert.
has healthcare desert in our two affected counties, in the Quabbin and Leicester regional areas. When I say brought together all the parties, I mean representatives from towns, probably 10 or 12 towns. We had representatives from the governor's office. We had representatives from the USDA, multiple representatives from different organizations representing rural health initiatives, representatives from our state senator, and representatives. So it was a big room. And we spent 3 hours learning and discussing about rural health issues as they affect our different towns. And I want to separate the issues that are being discussed about establishing a health facility in Ware from the greater rural health issues. The Friends of Mary Lane and people in Ware are working diligently to try to deal with bringing physical bricks and mortar healthcare to the Ware area. Bay State has announced publicly that they're going to put in a clinic somehow set up down there, having been officially granted the access and management of the Gilbert Trust. So they are now wholly controlling that, and or have announced publicly that they're planning on putting in a whatever they call it, convenient care and primary care somewhere in Ware. There's still a movement by the Friends of Mary Lane to change that or have a competing product. We believe that's not going to go anywhere, but that's still a thing. Judy and I have been very active in organizing everyone else, with the belief that our rural health needs are somewhat different, and the people in Worcester County in particular. So I have to talk to you after the meeting. We are actually going to be meeting with the boards of health in all of I call them the 7 families, but in the 7 communities around Hardwick, in an attempt,
New Braintree,
Warren, in an attempt to create a cohesive coalition who will then go to their select boards and allow us to speak as a group for them. We have already made arrangements to begin working with UMass to look at how their digital health enterprise projects for rural health and telemedicine could be leveraged into this area, and coming up with demonstration projects which would center in Hardwick. And if we can do proof of concept in Hardwick, we would look to expand those models into the 7 families.
Awesome.
So we have a lot of meetings on our calendars, and this has finally gained a bit of traction because the big beautiful bill gave the hospitals access to millions of dollars of grant money. and there's a deadline. And so now, all of a sudden, people are interested in talking to us. Because the money is only through the hospital, through certified health entities for rural health. So they can't go out and buy a new CT scanner with it. They have to spend the money to enhance rural health. And so we see this as a camel's nose in the tent event. We have that nose in the tent. We hope it will now be very hard to keep the rest of the camel
Never
out.
heard that reference.
My chair,
I have.
I had a chair who was from Texas, and he used to say, all you gotta do is get the camel's nose in the tent, and it's mighty hard to keep the rest of the camel out. So this has really exploded in the last 2 weeks. And I will have, we have meetings set up through March. So I hope
Thank
to
you.
be able to report back that we will have some traction on this. We had very little traction until all of a sudden we did. So there's that.
Okay.
I'm glad we didn't adjourn. Jeez.
No.
Good report, good job.
No, wait a minute. Who is we?
Judy Cohn and I,
No,
Judy.
Korzak and I have been appointed from the town, I as a designee from the Board of Health, and she as a designee from the Select Board, to speak for Hardwick. We are meeting with, as I said, the boards of health in all the surrounding communities. And we met with this large group on Monday who represented agencies, the state, counties.
that's awesome, because I've been trying to do the same thing on my own.
But you
With-
didn't have $62 million in your pocket, which has led to interest in supporting this. And so this now has
Wait a
some
minute,
momentum.
that's not fair.
I'm sorry.
I,
Do you have 62?
Doesn't matter.
Have you
What?
talked to
Never know.
Rosanna Pat?
No, go ahead, go.
I, no, I'm dead serious. And I was called upon by a nurse from Ware because of what I wrote something else. She said, you have to write a petition. So I was enlisted to do this in my retirement, and I did write a petition not only to rebuild Mary Lane Hospital, but to introduce new medicine. And now Neil is talking about the very same things that is in my petition. And I'm going out beating the streets, and I just came and got more signatures, and we're working at odds. Just what I said in the select board meeting last week is, can we just work together? Now, Judy Korzak emailed me and asked for a copy of the petition. But I'm maintaining that it doesn't have to be me involved with you, except that I want you to know the history that I was trying and
Well, Judy, if I may, I'm going to let you have that discussion with Neil afterwards. I'm going to adjourn the meeting.
Okay.
well, it is a public issue for health care.
We still need to do the next month's look ahead.
We do.
Yes.
See, you couldn't adjourn anyway.
Do you have plans for next month?
We're going to continue a public hearing next
It's
month.
the conservation.
That's it.
And we're gonna consider regulations.
And we're going to review the aquifer regulations.
Are we still doing green burial?
We have to do that also.
We should let's get through these,
Yes.
because we can always do green burial
Okay.
like in April or May.
We'll put those on. We'll discuss other things as they come up. Okay?
Okay.
All right. There is a motion to adjourn.
Yes. Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Third time around.
There we go.
All right.
So anyway,
Yeah.
I'm so thrilled
Yes.
that you and Judy Korzak
Mike,
have
thank you.
done this.
Mike, thank you very much.
Don't forget on the 14th,
Yeah, it is.
at the Delaney House.
I would love to.
I'm planning to attend.
Good.
Mike, I'm waiting for the website to be updated from 2025 registration to 2026.
I have your petition, as does Judy. We both have it.
Yeah, I sent her an earlier draft.
You